Okay, we'll go ahead and begin. Thank you all for coming out. This is the regularly scheduled December meeting for ANC 34G. I'm Randy Speck, Chair of the Commission, and I represent the single-member district that is ANC 34G 03. That is the area basically between Nebraska, Utah, and Broad Branch. We're glad to have you tonight. We've got a very full agenda. We're going to have some people talk about the comprehensive plan a little bit later in the meeting. We'll begin tonight by introducing the commissioners. Becky, again.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Madak. I'm 34G04. I have Lafayette Park in elementary school, and I basically go from Broad Branch to Utah, Nebraska, Morrison to Towson.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Abraham Clayman, and I represent Hawthorne and most of Barnaby Woods. Nice to see all of you.
Hello, everybody. Chris Frombeluti, 3G07, which is the area bounded on Military, Reno, Nevada, and Nebraska.
Hello, I'm Jerry Malich, 3G05. It's from Chevy Chase Circle down to about Military on the east side of Connecticut Avenue, across the Broad Branch.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Dan Bradfield. I represent 3G06, which is the west side of Connecticut, over towards Chevy Chase Park, down towards Military.
Okay, we have 6 commissioners here tonight. Director Garfield is out of the country for the moment, and we have 4, so we can conduct business. Just a few things by way of introduction about the ANC meetings. I see a few of you who I haven't seen previously, so maybe you're not completely familiar with the ANCs and what we do. We're all volunteers. We're elected every 2 years. We represent an area of about 2,000 people in each of our single-member districts. So in the aggregate, we have maybe 15,000 people who are represented in Chevy Chase, DC, Underwood, and Hawthorne. We meet, as I mentioned, usually twice a month. In December, we're on the second Monday of the month. Otherwise, we're meeting on the second and fourth Mondays. So our next meeting will be January 13th in the year. Our meetings are conducted in accordance with our agendas. We may modify the agenda depending on what's going on and how quickly or how slowly we'll proceed. But we'll try to follow the agenda. When we have a particular presentation, as we will tonight, a couple of instances, we get the presentation from the speaker. Tonight we have 2 directors of agencies in DC, the Office of Planning and the Office of Housing and Community Development. And so we'll hear from them first. Then there will be questions, any questions and comments from the commissioners, and then we'll have comments and questions from the audience. We've allotted a pretty good bit of time tonight to talk about the comprehensive plan, and I think it should be adequate for the number of people who are here, but it may be necessary to limit some of our questions in terms of time, just so we can finish. We do have to finish at right at 9 o'clock. So the other thing, I guess, is to say that we are, sometimes these issues that come before us can be a little bit contentious or heated. And so we want to always be very solicitous of others and make sure that we are being courteous and letting others speak. Please try not to speak over anyone else. Wait until we're recognized before we can speak. And we'd ask also that people come up to the podium to speak. Our meetings are videotaped or video recorded, and then they're placed on YouTube probably tomorrow morning. And so we want to be able to be sure everybody can be heard, and that whoever's speaking will be heard at the podium. So when you're asking questions, you can come up to the microphone. That would be helpful for everybody to hear you. Okay, the first order of business then is to adopt our agenda. Our agenda was published on our website and on the Chevy Chase Community Center listserv. Chevy Chase Community listserv. And there was one change that we made. One item was deleted over the weekend when that did not need to be brought up now. So with that Okay, the first item then is to make some announcements from the commission. I'll begin that. The first is a big milestone that's coming up. We've been working with the Ingleside Continuing Care Retirement Community for more than 6 years on the major expansion project that they have there. They're building 2 new independent living buildings, one 8 and the other 9 stories tall, and the other is a new healthcare center. So it's a major expansion and improvement of facilities at Ingleside. And they are now, after we reached an agreement with them about 5 years ago, almost 5 years to the day, on how the construction would be conducted, where trucks could go, where they couldn't go, where the workers could park, where they couldn't park. All of those various items were covered in a lengthy agreement. And we've been meeting monthly with Ingleside since then, throughout the construction period, to make sure that we addressed any issues that came up before they festered and became more serious issues. And we've been, I think, extraordinarily successful in that we've kept the trucks out of, construction trucks out of the neighborhood streets. We've kept workers from parking on the neighborhood streets. There's been a real cordial, I think, relationship generally between the Ingleside and the construction people and the neighborhood. And now we're almost finished. The building is essentially complete, and people will start moving in beginning of January. And I took a tour of it, the new building, last week, and it really is quite nice. It's a real addition to our community. It would be serve as an attraction, I think, for a lot of new people coming in. It is already completely sold out, so they have sold every unit in the new building. So it's, I think it's a real success story of our working with Ingleside, and they're working with the community to resolve what could have been a problem, and I think it's going to be. The next item is something we're going to address at some length, but I just wanted to mention at the beginning of the meeting that we're having a comprehensive plan task force meeting on December 16th. It'll be at 7 o'clock here at the community center. And this is the last of our task force meetings. We've had 3 previously, all of them public meetings, and we invite everyone to come. If you don't get enough of the comprehensive plan tonight, you can come back again next Monday, and we'll talk about it again. At that time, we're going to consider a report and recommendations, preparing a report and recommendations to the full commission about what to do with the comprehensive plan. The next item I have is what's called DC Plug. This is the PEPCO project to put a lot of the main feeder lines underground. This is not the lines that go from the pole to your house that are going underground, but the main feeder lines. And there's some work that's going to be done in our ANC. It's not currently scheduled, but it will be done in Barney Woods and Copperwood at some point in the future. This is all designed to reduce or improve reliability and to improve resilience for the electrical grid so that we can rely on our electric service a little bit better. There is a proceeding at the Public Service Commission. It's, PEPCO has asked for some changes in the amount that they collect from ratepayers for this project. It's jointly funded by the Department of Transportation, Department of Energy and the Environment. I can't remember which department. Department of Energy. Department of Energy. The Department of Energy is partially funding this as well as PEPCO. Just about splitting the cost. But PEPCO is asking for a change in the calculation of that fee that is tacked onto your electric bill. It's going to be a relatively small amount to your electric bill, but there are hearings that will be held, public hearings, on January 8th at 6:30, I believe. I believe it's at 6:30. And at the Public Service Commission's headquarters, which is 1325 G Street. Northwest Suite 800. Okay, that's all I have. Becky, you have something?
Yes, as many of you know that we've been in meetings for planning the new recreation center at Lafayette Park. There's going to be an official groundbreaking this Saturday at 3 p.m. And they said there's going to be activities for the kids, that they might have a few games and things like that. So if anyone can show up, please come at 3 p.m. to Lafayette Park for the groundbreaking. The mayor will be in attendance and council member too. Thank you.
Just one announcement. This Wednesday, December 11th at 6:30 p.m. at Lafayette Elementary School, the ANC, Councilmember Todd, and the Department of Transportation will hold a meeting to kick off construction on the Oregon Avenue reconstruction project, which that project is expected to begin on December 16th. As many of you know, this project has been in the works for many years, and so we look forward to it beginning and to hearing about the project timeline. And again, that is this Wednesday at Lafayette at 6:30 p.m. No announcements.
No announcements.
Okay, we'll go to community announcements then, and Gabrielle, you're here to talk from the mayor's office. You can push it back.
Alrighty. Good evening, everyone. It's been a long time since I've been here with you all. I think it's just the holidays kept falling on the one that I attend. But my name is Gabrielle Priest. For those of you who do not know me, I am one of the Ward 4 representatives in the mayor's office. I just wanted to let you all know my cell phone number. So that is 202-603-7182. Again, that's 202-603-7182. And I do have business cards, so if you did not catch that, feel free to come and grab me after the meeting and I'll make sure you get a business card. I just have a few announcements. So 2 weeks ago, Mayor Muriel Bowser announced a goal of $910 million for fiscal year 2020 to be spent on small business enterprises. The release of SBE Opportunity Guide for fiscal year 2020, also to be known as Green Book, provides a comprehensive look at the spending goals for district agencies and outlined resources to increase access to procurement opportunities. In fiscal year 19, the Bowser administration committed to spending $844 million with SBEs and exceeded that goal by spending more than $890 million. More information about the Green Book may be found online at business.dc.gov, so check it out if you're interested. Also this Saturday, Mayor Bowser and Chancellor Farabee invite residents to the 2019 My School DC Ed Fest, and that's going to be at 11 a.m. until 3 p.m. at the DC Armory. Parents and students will have the opportunity to meet DCPS and public charter school representatives, learn about the public school lottery application process, and receive free immunizations. Sorry, that word's hard for me. For more information, you can visit myschooldc.org. Again, that's myschooldc.org. Commissioner Madak already shared this, but we are having a groundbreaking this Saturday at 3 p.m. Residents are invited to join Mayor Bowser and Councilmember Todd for the Lafayette Community Center groundbreaking. That's going to be at 3 p.m. As she said. More information can be found at mayor.dc.gov. I hope if you're interested, we'll see you out there. I'll be there. And lastly, I wanted to invite you to attend the Mayor Muriel Bowser and the Department of Aging and Community Living 21st Annual Senior Holiday Celebration. Come see over 100 community organizations, DC government agencies, and local businesses come together to share resources worth more than 3,500 seniors, I'm so sorry. Enjoy a festive lunch, fun fitness demonstrations, live music, and much more at this annual holiday celebration. If you'd like to attend, that's going to be December 19th, also at the DC Armory at 11 a.m. This event is open to all DC residents age 60 or older, and registration is required. So if you're interested in attending, you can register by phone at 535-1372. Again, that is 202-535-1372. Or you can go to your local senior site.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody have any questions?
Your mic is not working.
Mine is not?
Yeah, this one.
I don't know, I think that might be working. Now, is that better?
Yes.
Is that working? Okay, all right. Okay, thank you, Gabrielle.
Thank you.
All right, I don't see D. Smith here. Anybody from Mary Chay's office? No one. Okay. Sam, you're here from Councilmember Todd's office?
Good evening, all. My name is Sam Stevens. I am a legislative assistant with Councilmember Brandon Todd. Going forward, I'll be covering this meeting until at least through June, as Jackson Carnes is out of the office until then. Who normally covers this. I'll keep it brief. I know we have a lot on the agenda. So first up, we just had this weekend. We had our Ward 4 holiday party in New Coke Drive at Lafayette Elementary School. It was this past Saturday from about 6 to 8 p.m. We were able to bring in over 650 codes for Ward 4 students at DCPS and DCPCS schools. So that was great. We'll be distributing these codes off this coming Saturday. We had a great turnout, about 300 people there. And I see a few people that I think I saw there. So that was a great event. And glad we can help our kids, our students. The second thing is, I heard somebody talking about this before the meeting, and we are aware of the issues with car sharing, parking and extended parking. From what I've seen, this is really prevalent on the 5700 block of 27th Street. I was made aware of this myself today. I saw a few people, we had a few residents, one there and then one over on Oliver Street as well. So you can see it right here. So I am going to reach out to DPW. I know, just to give you all kind of a review, the typical rule that they say is that the car sharing cars are allowed to park in RPP parking, but they're only allowed to be there for 24 hours and then they're supposed to get ticketed. From what I've understood, this is an app or a company called Drive Whip. I'm not familiar with that myself, but I will be looking more into that and see if we can kind of get this rolling, because I know it's kind of ridiculous when there's cars parking in front of residents' houses for weeks and weeks.
For 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we will be following up with that multiple days. And I'd be happy to talk to you after this, just to get more information, just as well as anybody else that has issues with this.
If this doesn't get resolved by the end of the year, we'll try to put it on an agenda early in January so that we can address it, because we really need to have all relevant actors in the room at the same time and figure out how we're going to resolve this.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Commissioner. And then next up was repeating what Commissioner Clayton said. We're having our meeting tomorrow night on the Oregon Avenue project from 6:30 Wednesday night, December 11th. We have flyers in there on the table with all the information, but it's at Lafayette Elementary School from 6:30 to 8 p.m. And we'll have DDOT there, Councilmember Todd will be there just to kind of update everybody on the timeline of that project, which, as Commissioner said, has been going on for a while now. I remember actually used to live up on Oregon Avenue, and it was about 2 years ago, and there was a bunch of construction then, so as long as I've been in DC, there's been construction on it there. Let's see, next up, see if I have anything else. I think that does it for me tonight, so I'll be happy to answer any questions. And I don't have my business card for me tonight, but we have our newsletter. If you're not on our newsletter, I'd like to get you signed up, and my contact information is on the back of the newsletter. Thank you, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Sam. All right, the first substantive item on our agenda is an application for a public space permit to install a fence over 42 inches high at 5101 Connecticut Avenue. And Commissioner Fromboludi will handle that.
Okay, so I received a mailing from DDOT on this. In the attachment that they sent in the mailing had absolutely no information about a fence on it. It was a DC water plan of the property. And I informed DDOT of that issue, and they told me that's all they had also, that they were going to postpone the meeting. They've asked the contractor for more information. So the the application won't be heard until January 23rd now, so we will postpone this issue to our next meeting. However, I suspect this is not going to be a major issue. It's a corner property, and I think it's a fence that's going to screen the parking. But I can't respond until we see the drawing. So that item will be postponed. Any questions from anybody?
You know what the height will be?
No idea. I know where the water line is.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the discussion and possible vote on applications by the Avenue and Capital Crab and Seafood for a substantial change to their liquor licenses to add sports wagering to their operations. Commissioner Bradfield, it's in your S&D.
Thank you. This is regarding an ABRA application for change. As many of you know, DC Lottery approved sports betting in local, both in a large sense, and I'll call it in a large sense, and also in a smaller sense with local, both in a small sense and in a large sense. For instance, down at Capital One, in a large sense, brick and mortar type of situation, and then also in smaller residential or local establishments, which is a Class B. So if you haven't, it's been tied with alcohol and ABRA licenses. So those establishments that have and want this new gaming application have to go through and add a different process, change the alcohol license they have now, and it will go to additionally get a Class B license with gaming. Tim Walsh has applied for his two facilities, the Avenue as well as Capital Crab. And why don't we have Tim, if you want to talk about where this has come from, where do you want to go with it, and why it's something important.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you all. My name is Tim Walsh. I am a resident here in Chevy Chase, DC. I live 3205 McKinley Street. I have for the last 12 years. God willing, I'll be there for another 30 or 40. I also am the proprietor of the Avenue, which is at 5540 Connecticut Avenue, and also Capital Crab and Seafood, which is at 5534. I am here tonight to ask for the substantial change to our license at both establishments. Basically, the substantial change is for the sports wagering. As Commissioner Beck said, that there is two classes, a Class A and a Class B. The Class A is Leonis class. It's the monumental sports. It's going next to Capital One, down by the baseball stadium, and if you think of something grand, that's what they're doing. You know, thousands of kiosks, millions of TVs, yada, yada, yada. What makes this different is the district has allowed for a Class B license for someone like myself to be able to utilize this new law. So basically what we're trying to do, let me go back a second. Basically, we're still a restaurant. Nothing changes. We are not asking to extend any hours. We're not doing any major construction, nothing. We are going to operate as normal. For the Class B license, basically what it is, it's an app. It's an app that already exists, that people use every single day, but now they'll get to use it legally. It is going to be geo-fenced, so you'll be able, when you walk into the Avenue or Capital Crab, your app will then work. So we're not trying to turn this into, I hate for someone to think that there's a casino that's going to be popping up on Connecticut Avenue. It's not. This is basically glorified Keno for us. Why we would like to see this happen for us, it's to keep people interested, keep people there, have another set of wings, have a birthday party there. Use this as another stream of income, because right now, the business environment, especially for restaurants in the district, it's tough. It's tough. Rents are up, food's up, linens have gone up 50%, water is up 20% every year. So our bills are just getting higher and higher, but unfortunately, I can't charge $27 for a cheeseburger. It doesn't make any sense. So this is an avenue, no pun intended, that we'd like to explore to help grow our business. questions.
Commissioner?
Tim, what is the financial arrangement then for these? I assume you make money based on how many people use it?
Sure. So right now, the attorney that we're using has introduced the sports wagering to other states. And he has a little bit of a conglomerate of other restaurants that are trying to do this. We will probably end up going with like a DraftKings, someone who's already in the space that has the app, that has all these things going. The deal that's in place right now, it's a 70-30 split. They put up all the money, all the risk. We will not have a cage in there. There's going to be there's no monetary, no real money. It's all app-based and credit card. You have to go in, you have to set up your own account, and that's it. There is no, we assume zero risk. The split right now that we're talking is a 70-30 split, but national averages right now, they're saying that a sports book collects about 5 to 6% earnings. So we're new, just throwing out numbers to make math easy. If you did $1 million, we're looking at 5 to 6% of that we would then now get 30% of, looking at $18,000. So it's not going for that. That's not the angle. It's not an angle. I don't want to use that word, but we're hoping to get people to stay longer, to have that experience. We're getting a lot of birthday parties. We're getting a lot of anniversary parties. We're getting some of these things, and now it's like, well, good. Now you can stay for an extra hour or two because you just bet on the Redskins.
Is there a limit on the number of Class B licenses that are going to be?
So right now, there's about 30 applications in. That doesn't mean that it's not going to get a lot more. I think some people are going to see how this really pans out. But as of right now, I think there are 30 licenses that are going in front of ANC right now.
How many have been approved by ANC? I think there's 6.
I think there's 6. Duffy's, Lou's, City Tavern, Dirty Water, some others. About 6 ANCs.
Getting in front of you.
Any other questions, comments from commissioners? Jerry?
The next closest one, you here?
The next closest that I know is that is applying is Cleveland Park Bar and Grill in Cleveland Park. And they're applying for Cleveland Park Bar and Grill and right next door, the Fat Beans Barbecue.
And even though you explained it well, what I heard somebody else explain it as, it's sort of like think of it as a PayPal account. There's money in your account.
Correct.
You go on your app, you do something, and then if you win, more money goes into your PayPal account.
There's no exchanging
comes out
whatsoever. I know in the beginning they were talking about that some of these places had to build cages and had to get security and all these different regulations that they were expecting, but since it now is really boiling down to app-based, it is, like he said, it's PayPal. It's, if you don't have an account, then you can't come in and start gambling. You need to have that account. You need to have that app.
Yeah, and you have application for both the Avenue and Capital Crab. You need both establishments, or you want both establishments?
I would like both establishments. Two reasons. One, well, the biggest reason I believe it will add value to my license. I don't see, really advertising Capital Crab. It's a good thing to have, especially in the environment that we are. If I lose that business to a builder, it's something good to have on that license. It just adds value to my business.
Any questions or comments from people in the audience? Lee?
For example, in the Avenue, you intend to set aside a portion, you have 3/4. Intend to set aside a place for people to do this?
Well, it's all really app-based. We have thought about putting in kiosks. It's something that we're talking about. So yes, there would be a place for you to actually go up and place that bet, but we're weighing that out as far as if no one has that app on their phone and they want to go put $5 on the Redskins winning the Super Bowl, they could. Not recommended.
More specific, not going to be, but for example, excuse me, for example, you intend putting a kiosk, but you intend to put either the first, second, or third floor, a special section where people can come in and sit and so forth. Maybe put the kiosk.
Right now, I mean, it's kind of open seating as far as, we would not delineate a space that just said if you placed a wager, then go watch this TV. You know, it's just, we really don't want to interfere with that person's ability to place a bet. If he's sitting and watching at the bar, so be it. I won't know if they placed a bet or not. So there would be no delineation saying if you would like to place a bet, go over there and watch over there.
Okay.
Am I understanding that? I don't know if I'm understanding.
Yeah. Follow-up question. Why do you think that this will help your business? Is it simply because people will stay longer?
That's the hope. I hate to say hope is our strategy, but it is right now that yes, we would hope that they would come in and instead of having, you know, just a set of wings and stay 15, 20 minutes, they're actually now going to be invested in the game. And they're going to stay for an hour and a half and order 2 sets of wings.
And maybe I'm wrong, but I also assume they think you probably draw more people to the establishment. Let's say again the average.
We're maybe that this will, but we're not. We're offering this service to our existing guests that come in. We will not be advertising outside to get. You know, we're not selling this as a casino. I think, honestly, we're not going to reject people for. I'm not going to turn away business for people coming in to use that as to use their app legally.
Okay, anyone else have comments or questions? Dan, do you want to make a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Johnny.
Yes, so could you elaborate on what you said about the add value to the license in case of the will come in?
So, absolutely. If I were to try to sell my business right now as a Class C license, market right now, since the market's very saturated, and having gone through this process in Glover Park recently, a Class C license right now probably goes for $150,000 at best. At best. Having an entertainment endorsement, meaning if you could, you're able to collect at the door and have bands, that probably adds $50,000 to your license, where I can sell that now for $200,000. Having this endorsement on the license, I don't know what it would go for, but it's more than $150,000.
So that's money you would have to be compensated if someone would buy out a business?
It's just, it's no different if I put in a $200,000 HVAC system. There's value to it.
Anything else?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Andrea.
Will you be advertising the availability of this feature at your restaurants?
No, not outside of the restaurant.
Okay, Dan, you want to make a motion?
I make the motion to not oppose.
No, this is going to be support.
Everyone's different, okay. I make the motion to support the substantial change ABRA application from Class C to Class B for both the Avenue, which is 101-007, and the Capital Crab and Seafood, which is ABRA 106-151, again, from Class C to Class B for the ABRA.
Second. All those in favor? 6-0. Okay.
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. All right. Now we're to the main event. We have Director Trueblood here. I saw him just arrive a second ago. You can stay seated for just a second if you want to. And Director Donaldson from the Department of Housing and Community Development. And we're very happy to have them. They're going to talk about the comprehensive plan, which we've talked about quite a lot at this ANC. And I just want to give a brief background to those of you who are not completely familiar with what's been done. I'm not going to try to summarize everything because that would just take far too long. I want to basically allow a lot of time for questions tonight. But our ANC has taken a number of steps to analyze the proposed amendments on the comprehensive plan. These are amendments proposed by the Office of Planning to the comprehensive plan that was originally enacted in 2006, and there's been one modification since then. On October 28th, we created an 11-person task force of commissioners, residents, and business owners to gather information and to make a report to the full commission. That task force has held 3 meetings thus far. We've exchanged a number of emails among ourselves and with the Office of Planning's technical staff, and we've independently, each of us has studied the 1,400 pages of the proposed amendments. It's a daunting task. The task force's assignment has been particularly difficult because of there's been an accelerated schedule, really, from our standpoint. We passed a resolution on November 25th asking the Office of Planning to extend the deadlines by 60 days, but it's my understanding that the deadlines will not change and that we're going to be stuck with them. Under that schedule, the task force, as I said, has one more meeting on December 6th before the December 20th date for public comments. By the December 20th, all public comments have to be in to the Office of Planning for individuals who are making comments. We also have taken a pretty extensive, or short but extensive, online survey. And I want Jerry to talk a little bit about that, where we stand with that survey.
Sure. Okay, so today is December 9th, I believe. So on December 2nd, we released a survey that was developed by the entirety of the task force that Randy just talked about. It includes 3 demographic questions and 5 questions of substance that pertain to the subject matter. And this is an attempt to help inform our recommendations that we're going to make as a task force to bring forward to the full ANC.
Gary, move your mic up just a little bit.
And
No, lift it up a little bit.
I'm keeping it here. So what we have right now is, it's been a full week since the survey's been out, and we have 286 surveys that have been completed. And while a survey is going on, you don't start giving preliminary results, but I can give you an idea of who's responding, because we wanted to make sure that we're getting all segments of the population to respond to this. So as of right now, in terms of age, we wanted to make sure we were attracting people of all ages to respond to the survey. So it's a pretty nice even split. People 45 and under, about 27%. People from 46 to 64, 35%. People 65 and older, 37%. So that's pretty much as good as we could hope for in terms of that. In terms of where they're located, because people are located all across our ANC from Reno to the park, basically. So what we did for that, since you don't want to ask people their address, since all the responses are confidential, we asked for the polling location where they vote, to try to get some idea of where they live. For that, 70% of the people that have responded either voted Chevy Chase Community Center right here or at Lafayette Elementary School. So we're missing a lot of people that voted Murch, St. John's, or Wesley Methodist Church. So some follow-up is going to try to key in on getting a higher response rate from those areas. Thirdly, we asked how long they live in their current location, because we didn't want just people that have lived here forever. We want to make sure that we get a good cross-section, and there too we've done pretty well. The largest group, of course, is more than 20 years, 42%, but the second largest is people that have only been here 0 to 5 years, 22%, and the rest is evenly split between 6 to 10 years and 11 to 20 years. So in terms of making sure we get both new residents as well as more established residents, we're doing a pretty good job on that. So in terms of the survey responses, as I said, we have 286 so far, and unlike a lot of surveys where other than the opening and the closing, you don't get many responses, we've had a constant flow. So after the first 2 days, we had 182, and since then we've had another 104. So we're getting, I'm looking at this, 12, 24, 17, 16, 17, 18 responses over the last 6 days, which is a very good sign indeed. We had promised people that it would take less than 10 minutes to complete. The average time to complete for these 286 is 8 minutes. So we've made sure that we're within that range. Lastly, just a couple of things about how we announced this. It's been announced on the Chevy Chase listserv, Chevy Chase Google groups, on Nextdoor, on our Facebook page, on the ANC website. On Monday, December 16th, when the ANC newsletter comes out, there's going to be another announcement in it then. And all of these other avenues that I just mentioned in terms of social media and websites, we're going to do a couple of follow-up announcements on those as well. The closing date for this survey is going to be Friday, December 20th, which is in 11 more days. So we can always hope for a certain amount of final responses by then. I don't want to say what we hope that might be, because I don't want to be disappointed if we don't reach that. But we have a very good start on this as of right now. In terms of the actual questions, a lot of surveys you find that people are skipping questions. The 5 questions of substance, there's been no more than 1 or 2 people that have skipped any question. So we have either 284, 285, or 286 responses for each of the other 5 questions that we asked on this, which is terrific. And the last thing I'll just mention, the URL for that survey in case. It's pretty simple. It's just Comprehensive Plan Chevy Chase and .questionpro.com. So if you haven't filled it out, or you know people that might be interested in filling it out, it's Comprehensive Plan Chevy Chase, all one word of course, .questionpro.com. And that's it. I'll take any questions if anybody has any.
Okay, any questions?
How long did the survey consider? Was that out for some time?
That was out. It'll end up being about the same amount of time. That one was 4 weeks, this is 3 weeks, but we're going to holiday season and we're not going to get a lot of people responding. The other thing that we did then is the survey came out during Halloween, and several commissioners were out on the avenue during trick-or-treating on the avenue, giving out cards with all of this. But there is going to be a push by several task force members to go door-to-door with announcements about the survey to try to beef up the response.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. Well, obviously we've done a lot of work already on the comprehensive plan, trying to get as much information as we can from people in the community. We've also, I should mention as well, a number of us attended a meeting last Saturday at Wilson High School where the Office of Planning made a presentation on the comprehensive plan and their amendments, and had a number of people there that we could talk to and ask questions from. So that was useful as well. But as a result of all of this work, we've really focused on three major issues that affect our ANC most directly. And we try to winnow it down because we can't address everything. There are lots of things we could be talking about, but these are the ones that affect us most directly. The first is we're looking at the future land use map. It's called the FLUM, a very unfortunate acronym. But it would propose to make changes that would affect our business corridor along Connecticut Avenue between Livingston Street and Chevy Chase Circle. We've been trying to get an unambiguous answer about what the proposed changes from low-density commercial, which is what it is now, about 2 stories, to mixed-use, low-density commercial and moderate-density residential. We've been trying to get answers as to what that really means in practice. And we've not gotten a definitive response. And I think that's probably because at this point, the Office of Planning can't give us a definitive response. We've been told that it will be an MU4 zone, or it could be that zone, but others could apply as well. And so we don't know really what the maximum height would be or what the maximum density would be for this strip along Connecticut Avenue. So there are concerns that the proposed changes would permit development at a scale that would be incompatible with the neighborhood and inconsistent with the community's expectations. So we're looking for language that we could add to the comprehensive plan, perhaps to what's called the Rock Creek West element, which is one portion that deals with all of the area, basically in Ward 3, that will give us greater assurance about what this important area for our neighborhood would look like in 20 years, or over the next 20 years. The second major issue that we've dealt with is, and that's Director Donaldson will, I'm sure, help us on this as well, but we've become pretty fully familiar with the Mayor's Housing Equity Report, which was also issued in October. And it's finding about the real absence or the dearth of affordable and workforce housing in Rock Creek West. And that program sets some really aggressive goals for how much affordable housing would be in this area, including in our ANC. So we spent an entire task force meeting developing ideas for how affordable and workforce housing can be built into our community. And we believe that there are options that can achieve our common objectives without extensive relying on what's called inclusionary zoning, which is basically a percentage of a market rate building that goes to affordable housing, 10, 15, 20% of that, the total number of units. The third issue that we remain concerned about is the continued rapid growth over the next 20 years that is projected in the comprehensive plan. The plan now approved by the council, the portion of it that's been approved by the council, expects 1 million people, almost 1 million people in the district by 2045. Now we've argued that we don't think that's actually going to happen, but even if it were to happen, we need to be planning for the kind of impact that that would have on our infrastructure, and that we need to plan for that kind of growth if that's realistic. We raised these issues before when the council was considering the framework element, which is the overall picture of the comprehensive plan, but our concerns really haven't been allayed at all. We're concerned about the availability of schools, especially. Our neighborhood schools are already too small for the current projected growth, and there's a very good study that was done last January on the Wilson feeder system, which includes all the elementary schools and Deal Junior High, that projects the need for 3 new elementary schools, a new middle school, and a new high school. So how are we going to do that? And we still haven't seen in the comprehensive plan amendments a way for that to happen. So with that background, we're very glad that Director Donaldson and Director Trueblood have come to be with us tonight. I want to let them make a presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions, first from commissioners and then from the audience. And I would ask too, if you want to speak, you can do this after or during the time when the directors are speaking. But if you could put your name up on the sign-up board, just go up there and put it on there, just so I can get an idea of how many people are going to be speaking, and then we can decide whether we're going to have to limit the time for each speaker. Okay, Director Trueblood.
I have some maps and things for you guys. So, Commissioners, thank you very much for having me. I must start out by apologizing. As you may notice, Director Donaldson is not here, so I will be presenting on both. I will be discussing both the comp plan and the housing equity report. The Office of Planning was a partner in the housing equity report, so I feel very comfortable addressing any of the questions you all might have on that. We have a presentation that we've given that's available online. We don't have a screen, so I'm not going to completely walk through it. In addition, I know this maybe ANC might actually win the award. There are two different maps, by the way. Yep. Okay. This ANC might actually win the award for kind of most active and most comprehensive on the comprehensive plan. So congratulations. I think the work you're doing really is a model, and I think an opportunity maybe for us to work with other ANCs now and in the future on how to engage and how to engage both with your constituents but also with us as well. So thank you for that. As was mentioned in the introduction, just briefly, the comprehensive plan is a long-term, high-level document that's meant to guide the growth and change of the city over the long term. It really has a 20-year vision for the city, and what I like to say is it's an opportunity for us to take a step out of the everyday, to take a step out of the worrying about potholes or worrying about a particular issue, and think about how do we create a successful, vibrant, resilient, equitable city in 15, 20 years for us and for our children and our grandchildren. The original comp plan is required by the Home Rule Act, I should say. So it's required by our charter document, and it was originally, this version was passed in 2006 after a vision that was created in 2004 called A Vision for Growing an Inclusive City. And I say that because A Vision for Growing an Inclusive City, if you look at it, if you look at the vision and if you look at the outcome, the 2006 document, is very much about how do we get out of the shadow of kind of the previous half century. How do we deal with what had been population decline, what had been financial health issues with the control board? How do we stabilize the city and stabilize our finances so that we can do things like invest in capital programs, like invest in schools, in our social programs? And I think if you look at it, I've read it all, and if you read it all in once, all 800 pages, what you see is a picture of the idea that we would grow in places where there was underutilized or available land. Areas like Capitol Riverfront, Navy Yard, Noma, that was the opportunity for us to figure out how we grow. And that areas, other parts of the city would be more about preservation or conservation. And I think, for the most part, that's what happened. We grew in line with the estimates of the time and have stabilized. We have an A+ bond rating now. And now what I think has changed is now we think about what growth means and how do we make sure that everybody, every resident can benefit from that growth. What does inclusive really mean? What does equitable mean? And how do we get that looking forward? I think there are, when we did our outreach, when we've done all types of outreach, whether it was before the original outset of this update in 2017, whether it was through the hearings that the council held on the framework element, we did some values and other engagement. This spring, we heard resoundingly that housing is really the top priority of many, many residents. And I think that is something that it is so fundamental to every one of our experiences in the city, what we experience, what our opportunities are, that really, I think, underlines a lot of the updates that we make to try and say, how can we create housing and opportunities in the city for everybody to make sure that every resident can be a part of the city today and in the future, and that we can be an equitable, vibrant, diverse city. So that's Just a couple more things. The comp plan has 25 chapters, as you all know quite well. It does have the area elements. There are 10 of them. They don't line up with wards because wards change every 10 years according to, based on the census. They're really political boundaries, as you all know, being in 3-4G. And planning areas are meant to be more steady across time and really group similar neighborhoods together. There are 10 of those. There are about a dozen citywide elements. These are things like housing, arts and culture, historic preservation. And then there are 3 of what we call context elements. The framework element, which actually is going to give you a better answer to your land use map question that I will provide in a moment, which was passed by council in October. The introduction and the implementation element. There's also the land use element, which for those who are very interested in kind of the nuts and bolts of planning. That's important. And then, for those who just really want the Cliffs Notes version, we have 2 maps that are being put up right here. The very colorful one with the red in the middle is our future land use map. That has designations: residential, commercial, PDR, production, distribution, and repair, industrial, institutional, parks, recreation, and open space, and public facilities. And then with commercial and with residential, it has low, moderate, medium, high density. Those are land use designations. They might sound like zoning, but they're not. It is not a zoning map, and that's where some of the challenges come in, and we can talk about that. It's really meant to be a broad, high-level guide about land use, and one of the critical things that was emphasized in the framework when the council amended it and passed it is that it is the future land use map. It is really meant to be how we think about guiding the growth. That is by enacting that, that's how we can do more detailed demographic projections, population projections, do more detailed facilities planning. And so that is really how it's through that document and through those designations and now through those changes that we're proposing that we'll be able to do that analysis at a more fine-grained level. You talked a little bit about timing. I'll just say it has been a long road. The first kickoffs were in 2016 for this update. Just by comparison, there was an update in 2011, 2012. We received about 300 public proposals for updates, and in 2017 for our open call, we received about 3,000. I think that not only is that a sign of interest in planning, which I appreciate you all for being here and being interested in planning, but also just a sign of how much the city had changed and how much really needed to be updated across the plan. So it's also worth mentioning, we did receive public input, but as importantly, we received input from other agencies, really through the guise of other plans that they had provided. Age-friendly DC, resilient DC, Move DC, all the DCs, all those plans are now, we kind of distilled and incorporated those into the relevant chapters or area elements. So there were over 40 of those that we included, also including our own planning efforts, like the small area plans that we have done since the last one was passed. Our goal here is really, it is really important that we update this plan because right now we are working on a relatively outdated plan, and it means that we're not able to do the things necessarily, implement the things that we'd like to. Our goal, therefore, is to have council pass it, hopefully within the next year. By the end of their council session, certainly in next year would be the goal. And to do that, we have this period, the public review period that's required by law. As committed to in the beginning, we have 60 days for public review. That's what we're in now through December 20th. And then we also decided that because there were so many updates, we would go ahead and extend ANC's extra time through the end of January to provide us feedback to which we will be responding. I want to get to the good stuff. So I'll talk really quickly about the 4 major themes of updates, and then I want to talk briefly about the housing. So for themes, housing is one of them. Housing production, housing preservation, housing equity, how we think about the distribution of housing, and I'll get to that in a second. Also issues, housing equity also includes questions about aging in community, for example. tied to the age-friendly work. We also, a major update we did was around equity, which while the previous plan talked about inclusivity, for us equity is really thinking about how we make sure our growth is benefiting all residents. We've added an equity crosswalk at the end, which really links to all the different equity policies and actions across the whole document. But it has some important things that updates that I think we haven't included in are a whole section about social determinants of health. That is something where it's not, at first we were debating because it's not necessarily directly tied to the physical environment, but actually as you look at it, it is intimately tied to the physical environment. Where someone lives has an incredible impact on their health and life outcomes. A stark fact from the department, the DC Health Equity Report, is that the life expectancy differential between here in Ward 3 and Ward 8 is 15 years. But if you look at any of the health indicators, childhood asthma, maternal health indicators, they all exhibit the same geospatial disparities, the same geographic disparities. We also add age-friendly DC into our equity, as well as a work around our food policy council is doing around food and food access. Resilience, we've added a crosswalk about resilience, incorporating resilient DC. Resilience is about how we deal with shocks and stressors, both man-made and natural. So there is a lot around sustainability and global and climate change, but there's also questions about how we would address other kinds of man-made issues, including how our public facilities are equipped for those issues. And then finally, the comp plan, if nothing else, is about how we use our public resources. So we have some major updates around. We have a whole section we've added to our urban design element about urban life, public life. How do we make sure our streets are not just for moving cars or even moving people, but can be places for farmers markets and festivals and other things. How do we think about urban design in our public spaces? We also propose, and this is apropos of some of the discussions we've had about the needs of our schools, but we propose a civic infrastructure plan to better coordinate our projections with the needs of parks, libraries, and schools to start with, and maybe also others like FEMS and police stations moving forward. We already do provide each of those agencies with demographic and age cohort information, but we think we can not only help coordinate across them a little bit better, but we can also provide more through especially as we understand our future land use better, provide more detailed analysis. So just a couple things to note on the other map is the generalized policy map. I talked about the future land use map. The generalized policy map is the map on the left. It talks about things like corridors and main streets, high-level areas of land use change. We've added a few things that I'd like to highlight. One are areas of planning focus for the future. These are areas where we've created we have created additional density, many of them along corridors that we know need to be analyzed for impacts and for design and other things in order to ensure that we can successfully incorporate that density. We also have areas of resilience focus. So these are primarily along the 500-year floodplain, but areas as sea level rise happens that we need to think about how we grow and develop in those areas or not. And then the final one is the outline or the boundaries for the Douglas Commonwealth, Washington-Douglas Commonwealth boundaries, the 51st state boundaries that we think is an incredibly important policy to highlight in our policy map. So I think those are kind of the highlights of that. I'll talk briefly about I talked about timelines, so I think we're good on that. And maybe I'll just talk briefly about housing equity, and really I want to get to your questions because you all know a lot. I've been spending a lot of time. I know you've been spending a lot of time. We've been working with you to provide you answers as best we can. So the other thing that we've been working on simultaneously, understanding that housing is a primary issue in the city, is how do we address housing affordability. The mayor in her second inaugural address set a goal of 36,000 new housing units based on our projections with COG that were mentioned earlier. We think 12,000 of those need to be available to low-income residents. Those are residents who earn less than 80% of the median family income, or about $96,000 for a family of four in the city. most of that is actually even less than that in our city. We focus most of our resources on less than 60 and 50% of the area median income. She also said we need to work with the region, which recently passed their own housing goals, which were 2020 to 2030, that said that the region needs to produce 75,000 additional housing units in that time, 75% in transit-rich areas, and 75% affordable to moderate and low-income residents. The mayor followed up her inaugural address, which was last January, with a mayor's order, which directed her agencies to look at how we increase and accelerate production, how we tie to our Homeward DC plan for homelessness to make homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring, how we tie to homeownership opportunities, connect with our regional and federal initiatives, understanding that the federal government is an incredibly important financial supporter of things like public housing, and then finally, how we think about the equitable distribution of housing and housing opportunities across the city. So with that in mind, we set out on our own survey last spring to share and get feedback on our housing distribution. That's where we did some analysis of where existing subsidized income and rent restricted housing is in the city, and we received feedback. About 3/4 of residents said that the distribution of our housing was not equitable, and that we need to do more to create housing opportunities for low-income residents in high-opportunity areas of the city, which is where we predominantly do not have them today. So we've set some goals in the Rock Creek West area. That goal is 1,990 units. We call it 2,000 units by 2025. Our data show there's about 470 today. By contrast, today in far southeast and southwest, which predominantly is Ward 8, there are about 15,700 units of affordable housing. So the idea is each part of the city has a different opportunity. What we might focus on in Ward 8 might be more about preservation and homeownership opportunities. What we are interested in areas like Rock Creek West or Rock Creek East or Capitol Hill is how do we produce these opportunities, and what do those look like. So I'm really happy to hear the work that you're doing, because the goal is to have that dialogue. Not the same answer in every part of the city. Different parts of the city have different opportunities to address these, and we have different tools to address these. So in some it might be inclusionary zoning, in others it might not. So there's a report you can get at housing.dc.gov. That we have a few here as well if you're interested, which goes more into how we got this information and the methodology. We had as part of our outreach on Saturday, well not as part, separately from our comp plan outreach on Saturday, but in the same place, we had a discussion with an expert from Harvard about their opportunity atlas, which really tracks what the opportunities are for people in different parts of the country, and you can actually even zoom in to different neighborhoods and census tracts, and you can see where there are high opportunity areas according to their data and others. And so we had a really good discussion about that and about how we can think about opportunity in our city. We're lucky that we have areas of high opportunity. And the other thing I can say is we also want to make sure that every part of our city is a high opportunity area. And so just thinking about how we address that is critical. The final thing I'll say is we are, as we wrap up our work on the comprehensive plan, we are now beginning restarting our efforts with some of the neighborhood planning. Our neighborhood planning staff has been very busy with the comprehensive plan. But as that wraps up with the council, we'll be doing some neighborhood work. Much of it will align with the red areas of housing focus that you see up there. One of them is the Wisconsin Avenue corridor. But we will also be interested in doing more fine-grained design work and talking to communities about how we can think about what additional housing might look like. In many cases, we find that density raises a certain concern among many residents, but if you actually do well-designed density, that actually addresses many of the issues. And how do you design buildings, and how do you design these in ways that can be contextual, in ways that can support and enhance neighborhoods. And that is the work that we'll be endeavoring on starting now. So with that, should I turn it over to questions?
Sure. Let me ask one to start with. You indicated you were going to respond to my concern about what is this strip of Connecticut Avenue going to look like over the next 20 years? We're concerned, is it going to be, you know, a whole string of 8-story high-rise buildings, or are we going to have something that's more conducive to the neighborhood, more like the neighborhood? What, in fact, does moderate density residential mean?
Well, that's a great question. So based on your question, we actually went back, reviewed the framework element which was passed by council. And it's interesting because they actually, in the text, talk about a low-density commercial with a moderate-density residential stripe, and how the striping really is meant to say intentionality in a commercial. So commercial can include residential by right. But if you put that striping, that means that when we look at this, we would look favorably or more favorably on residential. What I can tell you is MU4 is something that is a zone, an example zone that is available right now for low-density commercial. It's 50 feet in height, and with PUDs, I think maybe you could get set at 65 feet, although it depends on a particular situation. So that is what it is, and that is what we think would be a likely candidate for this either way. So in some ways, the stripe is less about more additional height or density and more about intentionality, that if and when it does become more mixed use, that the use that we would like to see is the residential.
Well, I'm sure you understand that there's a lot of reservations here about not knowing, just not knowing what it's going to be. And your example that you gave, it could be 50 feet, maybe 65 feet, maybe with a penthouse it could be higher. You know, there are lots of things that are still unknown.
And that's, I want to be clear, this is the comprehensive plan. This is the future land use map. This is not meant to say this is going to be 54 feet tall. This is meant to say broadly, this is a potentially kind of main street type corridor. It's the kind of thing that you see kind of past Columbia Heights on 14th Street, or where's there another, like the eastern part of H Street. It's not particularly high. You know, it's 50 feet, but it's the kind of thing where you have commercial on the bottom and then a few stories of potential residential.
Okay, I want.
Can I, sorry, I just want to say one more thing, which is all of that is actually worked out by the zoning commission and is the purview of the zoning commission. So another thing I didn't say, but maybe I implied, is this doesn't change anything. Even if this were to be passed by council tomorrow, it wouldn't change anything, because then the zoning commission would have to go and make the change. And that would be where, you know, there would be additional opportunities for inputs, especially if it were keeping, especially if it were going above and beyond the by right zoning.
But the changes, though, are to be not inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, including the flow.
That's right, but it wouldn't force a change.
No, it wouldn't force a change, but it would permit a change.
It would permit a change, that's right. And that's what we tried to do in the future land use map, was make it more future oriented, find opportunities for us to create, especially residential, especially housing opportunities in all parts of the city.
Okay, I want to get to questions from commissioners. Jerry?
Sure.
Want to start?
I have several, but I'm going to stick to just ones that are basically statistical or research methodology in nature.
Okay.
So, first, if I'm correct, the survey that you did, it seems like you had 2,763 respondents from across DC, is that correct?
That sounds right.
And in Ward 3, there were 209.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had those numbers right.
But the report would have the right numbers.
Right.
I don't have it memorized.
I couldn't tell because there are a couple of different things in here about, I wasn't sure if it was people that came to meetings or people that completed the survey or what, but thank you. So in all of the information that you send out, DC is broken up into 10 areas. And those 10 areas are not wards, which is what we're all used to, wards 1 through 8. So I was trying to make a little sense out of these, and I was wondering if you have the following information that I could just compare apples to apples and so on. So the current population, you have what affordable housing supply is needed in each of these areas. Could you supply the current population for each of those areas? Not right now, obviously. How many public schools are in each of those areas, the enrollment at those public schools, and the percent of capacity for those public schools? I think that would be useful information, especially as we talk about infrastructure needs and things like that, because it's hard to get a handle on, when you mentioned the affordable housing production goals, but how that matches up with current infrastructure and the capacity of that infrastructure in some places, and knowing the current population of those areas. It would have been easier if you kept it as wards, just as an aside.
Wards are going to be changing in 2 years.
Right. I just couldn't find any information about these because I didn't have the geographic breakdown, so I could.
We can provide that. They're also, they're in each area element of the comp plan update, but we have a table.
Okay. And
let me just remind you, sorry Jerry for a second, remind you to sign up if you want to speak. If you don't sign up, you're not going to get on the list.
And my last methodological question is the number of amendments that you received affecting which areas? Just a chart so that these are 10 areas and you received amendments about them. What were the number of amendments that were received for each of those areas?
You mean on the future land use map or for each area element?
You mentioned that you received 300 amendments,
3,000
amendments?
What I can tell you, we can provide the number of amendments probably by planning area for the map. Mm-hmm. We can also provide it for each area element, but some of them are citywide.
Okay.
A number of them are citywide.
Okay, I'm basically just interested in the 10 areas so I could start comparing things based on the 10 areas instead of, since we're using those instead of wards, just so I have an idea. And I have some other questions, but I want to give other people a chance to ask.
Thank you.
Okay, Chris, we're going to try to get through commissioners quickly, so we'll have some time.
This is not a question, this is just a brief comment. I hope everybody realizes how important this future land use map is. Just by having this area of Connecticut Avenue proposed for moderate density, it's probably increased the land value of all these parcels along Connecticut Avenue considerably. Right now, you're allowed to have, I think, up to 40 feet, but there's no residential allowed. Under the new proposal, you can go up to 50 feet, but a PUD could go up to 65, which significantly increases what a developer can do with any of these lots. So even though the zoning has not changed, the fact that it's changed on this future land use map means that a developer can go to the board of the zoning appeal and say, hey, the future land use map says I can build up to moderate density, and the chances are very good that the zoning commission will, or the board of zoning appeal or adjustment will allow that new use. So this is a very important document. It looks innocent, pretty colors, but extremely important document for our neighborhood.
It's a good point, and it's something that we've been grappling with. The intention is to, insofar as there's additional density created, to be able to make sure that we benefit from that. We are a little bit constrained by the Constitution and by the fact that zoning is about police powers, so we can't use land value capture as a term when we talk about zoning, but we can talk about, mitigation and other things. So one of the mitigations that we'll be proposing, and we told the zoning commission this, and they're very interested, is that if someone comes in for a map amendment, for example, and goes to the zoning commission for the map amendment, which they could today, right now, they could go for a map amendment from MU3 to MU4 here. We would say, well, if you're getting additional density, we're going to increase the percentage of inclusionary zoning that we require. Right now, it's between 8 and 11%, depending on from where to where, it'd be between 12 and 20%. So we are, I think we're interested in some of these issues and what we can do to make sure that we are achieving our goals as well.
Just as briefly as you can, And I know this is complex, but forgive me, if you can just summarize, what is the change that the future land use map is proposing to the area to the north of Livingston on Connecticut Avenue?
Just the map, or the striping we were talking about?
Yeah, what is it currently and what is it proposed? So, clearly you can, what is that change?
So currently it is low-density commercial. Okay. I should have brought the framework element which defines it exactly, precisely, legally. Sure. But the framework element that was passed in October says exactly what that is. But it is not, low-density commercial can be more intense than low-density residential. Low-density residential typically means single-family housing. Sure. Low-density commercial typically can, in this case, it's an MU3, which is, you guys might actually know the height better than me, 40 feet. MU4 is 50 feet. And that those kind of lower MUs are really meant to be Main Street type uses. What we added was a residential stripe. So we said it's low-density commercial, moderate density residential. That's the moderate is one above low-density residential. If you look at it, moderate density residential is about, it doesn't actually give much of any more density or height or FAR, but what it does say is that insofar as there is any of this used, we would like any additional density used or created or remapped in zoning, we would like for that to be focused on residential.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So right now we're talking about Connecticut Avenue only. We're not talking about anywhere else in our residential areas because...
That's right.
So how many years is that good for that we're only talking about Connecticut Avenue?
So we are doing this is the last update of this comprehensive plan. Thank you, it's a good baseline, or a good question. This is the last update of this plan. We learned that I think this update really was taking it to its useful life, if not a little bit beyond. And there will be a whole new comprehensive plan rewrite I think it's slated for 2025. 2020, is it 2025? Yeah, I think it's 2025.
And then that would expand into the neighborhood or no?
I don't know what, I don't know. I mean, it would cover the whole city. What it would say is, it would speak to there would be some sort of land use that would speak to every part of the city.
Okay, but right now it's only the commercial corridors we're talking about till 2025.
We're talking about changing.
I'm sorry?
Well, there's only, in this ANC, that's really the focus of the land use changes that we proposed. Everything else is staying the same as it was in 2006. We're saying it's the same as the originally passed version in 2006. Which you can kind of see over there, but we can provide more information if there's any specific. But it is worth mentioning that there's a lot of interest in single-family zoning. You might hear this in Minneapolis abolished single-family zoning. They didn't abolish single-family homes, but they abolished the rule that said there can't be more than a single-family house on a place, on a lot. So I will say, we in the zoning rewrite from 2016, we allowed for accessory dwelling units by right. That can be in your attic or in your basement, or can be a separate unit. But we don't. The comprehensive plan does not speak to doing that kind of single-family zoning. Anything changing our approach to single-family zoning. Councilmember Nadeau, in the framework element, introduced language that requires us to provide a report about single-family zoning and its relationship and impact by the comp plan that will be provided to council, but that will not change what you've seen. That will just be a report more likely to be used potentially in a rewrite.
Okay, we've got maybe 25 or 30 minutes that we can spend on questions from the audience. How many? I can't see. Five people. Well, let's start off with 5 minutes each. So each person is going to have 5 minutes to get whatever comment they have and whatever question and answer. So Lee, you're first on the list. You have 5 minutes. We can pass the mic around.
My name is Lee Schenecker. I'm a former ANC chair. I'm a retired urban planner. I'm not a formal member of the task force for the simple reason that I maybe want to submit comments on December 20th, which were outside of this particular ANC for the city and the entire Rock Creek West planning area. First of all, I think this particular Rock Creek West planning area has long needed more affordable housing and so forth. And in my particular independent comments, I will submit some of the same. And I'll try to be quite detailed. I've been on the telephone today with either Ward 3 or Ward 4 planning. I want to echo very strongly Randy Speck's, Chairman Speck's comments on the population and the lack of facilities. I think 987,000 people in the District of Columbia by 2045 is next to impossible. And drawing from the policy framework, here are the reasons. This all comes out of the policy framework. Number one, it's a much too small area. There's 61 to 62 square miles of land in the District of Columbia. Now, on my own, I've delved into central cities of over 500,000 people. The District of Columbia is the third smallest central city in the United States, 61 to 62 square miles. That's what you have in the beginning of the land. Number two, from the policy framework, 40% of that land is controlled by the federal government. Number three, the height limitation is 130 to 140 square feet. We just don't have much space to go. Number four, the persons per household have gone way down since 1950. Number five, we're going to add 247,000 people downtown, however your downtown is defined. I think for these reasons, it just simply can't grow to 987,000 people. My guess is going to be somewhere between 800,000 and 850,000. That's going to be pure hell getting there. I completely agree with all the affordable housing provisions, and I think there should be some more, but you simply can't do it. Now, okay, now with regards to the facilities. Okay, now with regard to the facilities, again, I'm in complete agreement with Randy Speck. I don't see a finance plan. One of my old urban planning professors said, a long-range plan, a good long-range plan, without having an adequate capital improvement program and financing, is like an adult writing a letter to Santa Claus. So, those are my comments. I think we do need more affordable housing, public housing, and so forth. That's it.
Thank you for those. And I appreciate. So I'll take the second one first, the facilities question first, because I think it's a good one. We do have a financing plan. It's called the Capital Improvements Plan. It's the budget that is approved by council, and this document is used to. I should say the Capital Improvement Plan must align with this document, which is why it's important that we pass it. Because of the way DC works, and I don't know other places. We have the plan, which is really the purview of the mayor and the council, and is passed every year as part of the budget. But what I think what I see as the importance of this plan is it sets up the needs, it sets up the reason, it sets up the analysis that then can support the capital improvements plan. So I think that is how it has worked. I will say more recently it has not, because this is is relatively outdated. The information is less relevant, but hopefully through an update we can make it more relevant to the capital improvements plan. As you speak about population, it leads me to believe. Well, so number one, our population forecasts have been pretty accurate to date. We do revise them. It's a cooperative forecast we do with the Council, Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. It's based on an econometric analysis of job growth, and from job growth you figure out regional growth, and then you look at what is possible. I think a few things is if you look at densities compared to other cities, we aren't the most dense city. So that means inherently there is room for more people. I will say the demand to live in DC is not under our control. Nobody really controls that. But the ability for us to build the height limit, other things are within our control. And so it might not be something we address today, but that is a future generation's opportunity should it be needed. I think that the problem of saying that we're kind of done and we can't grow anymore. Okay, so that's fair. So I didn't mean to mischaracterize you, because I think maybe what you were saying is it's unlikely that we will continue to grow at the speed we're growing.
I don't think you will ever grow to 987,000 people.
Okay, we're going to have to
Okay.
move on to another
well,
question.
anyway, there's a good discussion to be had about population growth, and in fact, our population growth has declined over the speed of our growth has been slower. What I think that, as the Chairman Speck said, we still need to. It's in my benefit to think about how we grow. If we don't grow that fast, then we won't need to build that. Then that won't be built. We won't need that extra housing, or we'll need to think about the types of housing we need for existing populations that are changing. And so I think the point is that the goal is to plan adequately, so that otherwise, if we don't, then we continue to see the housing pressures, the housing price pressures, and that's something under our control is the ability to try and alleviate that.
I will just mention that it grow in a way that no longer makes the district desirable, growth will stop.
That's right.
People will not come here if it's not desirable.
I agree.
Okay, Alan.
Hi, my name is Alan Soderlieb. I live at 3015 Oliver Street. I have a kind of selfish, narrowly focused question. I live right around the corner from Nebraska and Utah Avenue, where the Episcopal Children's Center is. And I know it came up in the survey. We also have 2 young kids in my house. We have a lot of little kids around the neighborhood. A lot of us are very worried about the future of the schools. The schools seem to be overcrowded right now. My children at Lafayette, it's a great school, but you can see what's happening. It's crammed. And I was just curious to know from you guys how much thought you've given about maybe turning that parcel of land into another school, another elementary school, or maybe a future middle school, given the status of deal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I will say the kind of specifics around planning for schools is the domain of DC Public Schools and the Deputy Mayor for Education. So I don't want to. We are supportive of them. I think I had a chat with somebody on Saturday about this particular site. I can't remember who. But I think that is the kind of thing that we would be supportive in talking through and seeing if it could be a useful site, especially given the idea, especially if it seems like there will be a certain type of population growth. So I think that is the role that we play. That's through the proposed civic infrastructure plan. We would also then add other things like rec centers and libraries. I think one thing that is also worth noting is housing doesn't have a linear, doesn't have the same relationship with school-age children. It depends on the type of housing that's built. A senior housing, for example, will likely not produce a lot of school-age children. Group housing or co-housing does not necessarily produce more school-age children. So through the work that we're doing in our projections, we're hoping to get a finer grain analysis of those kind of age cohorts and understanding better the housing needs.
So nothing on the Episcopal school just yet.
It's on our radar. It's on our radar.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Andrea? Pass the mic to her.
So I was wondering how Oki plans to attain 1,990 new affordable units in Rock Creek West. For example, do you have a target number for each of the neighborhoods?
Yeah, thank you. So those goals were the first step to say we need at least something to shoot for. I will say in the comprehensive plan, in the housing element, there's a new policy that says we seek to create an equitable distribution of affordable housing or subsidized housing across the district by 2050. And so this is beginning to try and move that curve towards that, which is about 15%, no less than 15% per planning area. As it gets to this, our next step is really to look at specific tools. where might, given these future land use map changes, where might we be able to get inclusionary zoning units? Where can we think about accessory dwelling units? Where do we think about opportunities for some of the vouchers, or in some cases, what's the other thing I was thinking about? Conversions of existing housing that isn't subsidized into subsidized all counts. And so that's it's a kind of two-pronged analysis that we're doing to see, number one, what is going to be in the mayor's FY fiscal year 21 budget in terms of all of those different tools, and then figuring out and then thinking about what it would look like in the planning area.
May I add something since my time's not up?
Sure.
Conversion of existing housing, I have a feeling you might be referring to rent-controlled housing?
Potentially, I mean, it could be, the point is it could be any, it could be, you know, Class B buildings that are not rent controlled, that are post-1976, that it's cheaper to convert them than it would be to build a new building. New construction is the most expensive way to build affordable housing in the city.
Yes. Sorry. I just want to say that I think it would be a mistake to convert rent-controlled units, because I feel like that would be cannibalizing already affordable housing.
You know, rent control is something that I didn't know I would be quite so working on so much, but you know, the rent control bill is up before council in terms of the reauthorization, so I think it is top of lots of folks' minds. And it certainly is one of our housing tools in the city, undoubtedly. And Rock Creek West does support a great deal of rent control. The reason that we didn't include it, and that this has come up in some of the methodological questions around our housing report, is because we were looking at units that are both restricted by rent, the rent is restricted, and the incomes are restricted. And so insofar as we don't know, you know, I could live in rent control. We don't know who is in those. We can't necessarily say it's meeting our kind of equitable housing goals.
Well, that is a little disingenuous, because we do have a lot of rent-controlled units just below Livingston that are serving the function of affordable housing. And one problem we're concerned about is that if you build a bunch of new stuff here, you're going to increase the rents there too, probably.
Yes.
And you may end up not having as much truly affordable housing as you had before. If you make this area much more attractive, who knows what's going to happen to that?
Yeah, I mean, our goal is, I guess, to make every area attractive, but the other thing is we just, you know, every area has an opportunity of providing housing opportunities. So however we do that, you know, that makes the area more attractive, that's, you know, successful. But you know, that there is rent control, or that there's anything that might, you know, be impacted one way or another by affordable housing. Some say it would increase the value, some say it decreases the value. You know, our goal is to provide those opportunities.
Okay. John.
Yes, my name is Jonathan Guy. I'm on the task force, and I've lived in DC for about 25 years. And I've had a lot of conversations with the folks who work for you, and they've been very responsive and helpful.
John, get closer to there.
Oh, I'm sorry. They've been very responsive and helpful. And I think there's a general agreement as to the equity issue you raised, that affordable housing is a good goal and something that we should be trying to achieve. But I think a lot of people in the community are really struggling with exactly what it is that's being proposed here. I want to bring some granularity to this change to moderate density residential, that if the DC Council votes it, will become part of the flume. And I want to bring that granularity in context with the framework element that's already been voted into law. So MU4, as we understand it, if you have a planned unit development, and this is something that confirmation we got from your colleagues, could potentially result in a 7.5-story building once you include the penthouse. So it's 65 feet with a PUD plus a 15-foot penthouse. And I think a lot of people are worried about what that means for the scale and character of Connecticut Avenue, but also they're trying to understand how is that going to help us with affordable housing? Because PUDs provide affordable housing as a percentage of the number of units. So, for example, the building on Connecticut and Military that everybody around here is very familiar with, that has 220 units and it has 19 affordable housing units. So, 19. So, to bring 2,000 affordable housing units, and I think a lot of people welcome that and welcome that, what that would mean. That would mean 20,000 units in DC by 2025. And my question is, now that the framework element is the law, and that's been changed, if the council approves the flume next year, what is to stop developers coming into Connecticut Avenue and saying, I have a PUD, it's consistent with the flume, it's consistent with the framework element, and I would like it to be approved by the zoning commission?
Thank you. I want to correct one thing. It doesn't mean 20,000 new housing units in Rock Creek West by 2025. None of our projections show that. Inclusionary zoning is one tool to get it, but it is not the only one. So that is not the scale that we're thinking of growth that would happen in this part of the city. But the point is a good one, which is the future land use map is meant to be high level. Really, those particular questions of compatibility, of step backs, of house heights are meant to be dealt with by the zoning commission, which is independent. So when a particular project, if a PUD is a good example, that would come before the ANC. The ANC would have great weight to weigh in on it. As we find with PUDs, that the owner, developer, whoever works with the ANC, oftentimes a community benefits agreement is part of that. The city is interested in what mitigating impacts, what mitigations there might be. Affordable housing is one, green space is one, upgrades of infrastructure are some. All of that happens with PUDs, which is why we are fans of PUDs. Rarely ever, especially if the ANC were against it, do they go to the full building envelope. That's the potential. That's the point is there's a chance for review, not only of height, which, I think, as I said before, is one factor, but not always the most important factor that people feel, but also design, which is when you're on the ground or in your car or walking around the neighborhood, that is oftentimes what you feel as well. So that is why the PUD, you sort of took the highest level thing that they could possibly get, but there are steps that are there. Apart from a PUD, they would still, right now it's MU3, so it can be built up to 40 feet by right. Someone could build a 40-foot building today. If they wanted to change the zoning map to an MU4 and get more potential height, they would have to go to zoning commission to do a map amendment. Once again, there would be a public process involved. So none of this is self-enacting, and there is a whole other step or set of steps that would then be a part of any change.
So we're clear, if the flume is approved as proposed to change it to moderate density, there is a potential for all the way up Connecticut to Chevy Chase Circle that you could have PUDs, planned unit developments.
That exists today. That potential exists today.
No, because it's only low-density commercial. They would have to satisfy the low-density commercial requirement, correct? Have to be consistent with that.
Yeah, but you could...
So now it would be consistent with the change to moderate-density residential, mixed-use, low-density commercial, which your colleague has confirmed to us is potentially MU4, which, as you said before, is 14th Street.
Right, and MU4, it could be, I believe, no, but MU4 could be mapped today. I mean, it would have to go to zoning commission. I'm sorry, it could not be mapped today. Someone could apply to the MU4 today, and it would not be inconsistent with today's future land use.
Correct.
With low-density commercial.
Which is why no one has. But I mean, the community is really trying to understand what this change means, and we're struggling. I mean, look, we're totally on board with the affordable housing goal. What we're really trying to understand is what is the impact here. And what we understand the impact is a potential zoning change from MU3A, which is what we have now, to MU4, which could, MU4, an example of MU4 is 14th Street, correct?
Upper, not like upper 14th Street. Yeah.
Right.
I could give you the specific. I forget the street.
We've gotten that, and it's Columbia Heights, basically.
Yeah, it's North Columbia Heights.
Right.
It's not right by the metro, but a few blocks north of there.
And if that change is made, there's nothing that anyone in this community, we would have input through the ANC, but it goes to the zoning commission, and historically, those of us who live in DC, you drive around DC, we know that the zoning commission is generally favorable to new development.
So, I think it would be part of the process. I think that designing a future, how do I say this? The future land use map is one step, but there are more steps. And so, and honestly, the difference between what you could do today and what you could do with that stripe is relatively minimal, other than we're trying to say that we want residential insofar as there's more than one story.
Okay, we've got to move on to the next question. Mr. Khan? Pass that.
This is Ron, can you hear me? Okay. I live on Livingston. I have 3 questions. I did a little data mining along Connecticut Avenue, so I figured out by public information that along Connecticut Avenue, West Rock Creek, 40% of the residences are apartments. Those are along Connecticut Avenue. Also, I found out that the median rental price is $1,500. So I did some math on income, standard deviations, those types of things, individual income, family income, because I was trying to find out what that little red dot really meant in terms of how you calculate it. But if you take that into consideration and do and extrapolate based on those numbers, which are there, you would realize that there is quite a large number of moderate income people living in West Rock Creek. Can I get your comment on that?
Sure. Yeah, we looked actually at what's called PUMS data and census data that gets relatively detailed granularity, and found, and if you look at just the people who live in any given area, whether in the area, Rock Creek West has the lowest percentage of residents under 60% of the MFI than any of the other planning areas, as well as when you move it up to 80, Rock Creek West actually, and I think to your observation that aligns, it increases substantially, and I can get you the numbers. If I say them, I'll probably get them wrong. I think it goes from about 7% to about 33% of the planning area. And so that's more, and that's not insignificant, but it's also the lowest of any of the planning areas in the city. So I think I was reflecting on this weekend's presentation, which was about opportunity, and I think regardless of what it is today, I think there is the opportunity for us to provide more housing opportunities for residents who are low income. Across the city, but we have not done it. Our policies, the district government's policies and the market economics have made it very difficult to do with our tools over the last 20 years, which is predominantly where you see those numbers are based on where we've been subsidizing residential housing over the last 20 or 30 years. And so this is really about how do we change those apparatuses, how do we change our policies and programs to make sure that we create equitable opportunities across the city.
I think it's pretty clear from the meetings that we've had that we absolutely affirmatively want more affordable housing in this area. The question is, how do you get it? And you said inclusionary zoning is one tool in the toolbox. We agree, but we think it's not the most effective tool, especially in our neighborhood. And so we are going to, I just give you a preview of what's likely to come from the task force. But I think that the task force is going to say, yes, we want more affordable housing, but we want it to be done thoughtfully. We want it to be done in a way that's going to maximize the amount of affordable housing that we can get in this area. And we want it to be done as part of a comprehensive plan for, not for the city, but for our little neighborhood, so that we can be participants in that process. And it's not going to be something that ends up being foisted on us by anyone, but that we have been involved from the beginning in designing the vision. And basically that's what we're talking about, is the vision of what this neighborhood is and can be and should be.
I think that is wonderful, and that is something that we want to engage with you on. The point is not to jam down a particular policy or program in any particular part of the city. The point is to look at what the opportunities are. And insofar as there are opportunities that you have that align with certain programs or that need programs created to be successful, that is the kind of discussion we want to have.
And that's why it's unfortunate that Director Donaldson's not here, because we have some specific questions, I think, about what kinds of support and subsidies can we get to do the kinds of things that we think are most important for our neighborhood and will be most effective, more importantly, most effective in our neighborhood.
I was going on the 5-minute assumption that I would ask, wasn't that? I wanted to wait till the end to see if this came up before, but we've been talking an hour and a quarter now and it hasn't. One of the things that we've talked about and that I'm most concerned about is that all communities are strengthened by having more workforce housing. And that word hasn't come up once here, and it's nothing in anything that the Mayor's Housing Equity Report talks about, yet there are several studies that indicate that workforce housing, having police, fire, medical, teachers, librarians, living in the communities in which they work is one of the most beneficial things a community can have. Yet there's nothing that addresses workforce housing anywhere here, and I just think that that's a crime.
I will say the mayor proposed a $20 million workforce housing fund in last year's budget that she was kind of, Asha, Asha from the Mayor's Office of Policy is here, who has been working on these issues. That was not well received and was then taken and put in other places. So I think because of that, we were really focusing our efforts on the tools and policies we have. That being said, from a city perspective, from a health of a city perspective, that middle income housing is really critical, and we recognize that, and we're still working on, I'm pointing to Asha, who's from Mayor's Office of Policy, still working on what that looks like, both from the opportunity of producing more housing, of leveraging programs we have, like the Homeowner Purchase Assistance Program, which provides down payment, or, and then EHAP, which provides support for teachers and others, but are there other things that we need to do? I think that is something, that middle income is really an important piece of our city's housing need.
Those same people, by definition, would be eligible for what is called affordable housing in this document.
Depends how you define it.
I mean, with how things are defined all throughout, yes.
2 more minutes. Continuation of the question.
I'll get one different question and we'll stop. On the 20th of December is that milestone date where we individuals submit questions to the Office of Planning. Is that correct?
Submit questions now.
Well, I'm just saying on the 20th, if I personally have 3,000 questions, what would be the turnaround anticipated on comments and suggestions based on that deadline date? What would be the process for getting back on individual questions?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so yeah, this is a question that's come up. So this is technically public review. It's a little bit different than a regulatory process that other agencies follow, wherein they have public comment and then they respond to everyone and they make a final regulation. Because ours is a draft that goes to council, this is review prior to council's taking up of it. So what we have done, what we will be doing is we will be reviewing all the public comments as well as submitting them as part of our package. But we're not anticipating responding to all of them. We're going to be responding. We encourage people to work through their ANCs. We will be responding to all ANC actions.
Okay, we're going to have to move on. We've got 5 minutes left to finish all of our business we have to conduct tonight. Director Trueblood, we thank you very much. We thank you for the outreach effort that Office of Planning has done over really all the time period since the plan came out. And it's been enlightening in a lot of respects and still puzzling in some respects that remain.
Well, I just want to wrap up by saying I hope we continue this beyond, I think a lot of our discussion is about things beyond the comprehensive plan, and I want to continue those discussions.
And we do too. And this is a process that I mean, even optimistically, I think, you wouldn't expect new affordable housing to come into this neighborhood for another 4 or 5 years. I mean, just realistically, I think that's the only way you're going to get it. It's going to take some time. And yes, we've got to start somewhere, and we're starting right now, but this is a dialogue that's going to continue for a long time.
Well, thank you. I look forward to it.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, if you're leaving now, if you could be as quiet as possible. We've got a couple of things that we're going to run through very quickly. And the first is a report from Chris on where we stand with the design process for the community center. I think this is going to be real short.
Our next public meeting on the community center is Wednesday, December 18th, right here in this auditorium, 7 p.m. DCPR will be there, Parks and Recreation, and the people that own this building, and the architect will be there. Not sure yet exactly what new they're going to present, but we'll find out. And if you're interested in the community center, come to the meeting.
Okay, the report on the comprehensive plan task force is also short because we've gotten a lot of stuff about that now, but we are meeting on the 16th from 7 to 9. The focus of that meeting is going to be on the report that we're going to prepare, and it will go to the full commission. This is in anticipation of resolutions that the commission will consider in January before the deadline of January 31st. We would like to have as much input as we can. We're still not going to have quite the end of the survey, but the survey will be ending on December 20th, and then we're going to have to incorporate that into the report as well. The meeting on the 16th will include not only the major topics that we've discussed, but we're going to try to have some time in there too, build some time in to talk about any other aspect of the comprehensive plan that people are concerned about. I know some people have raised a concern about the environmental impact of streetlights. There are going to be other infrastructure issues that may crop up. Transportation, I know, is always a big issue. So anything else that people are really concerned about, this will be an opportunity for you to communicate your concerns and your comments to the ANC for inclusion in our resolution that we send to, ultimately to the Office of Planning. So please come out and give us your thoughts. Okay, it will be right here in this very space. Okay, the minutes of our November 25th meeting were posted on our website and on the Chevy Chase Community Listserv and other listservs as well, and publicized in our various newsletters. Are there any changes or modifications to the minutes? All those in favor of adopting the minutes? 6-0. Okay, we have only one check in the absence of the treasurer tonight. I will mention there's an $85 check to Computero to fix a scanning issue that we had. All those in favor of approving that check? 6-0. Okay, just as a note, we need a resolution. This will be very simple. A resolution giving the treasurer continuing authority to write checks until January 13th, our January 13th meeting, because that authorization expires at the end of the year. So all those in favor of approving such a resolution? 6-0. Okay, items for our January 13th meeting. We're going to have to do a lot of things related to electing new officers, adopting our bylaws again, adopting a meeting schedule, and getting our security fund taken care of. Other things on that agenda will include a discussion of possible resolution on the Office of Planning's proposed amendments. We're going to discuss it. We're not going to vote at that meeting, but there will be a further discussion. There will also possibly be a discussion and possible vote on a resolution relating to the Electronic Smoking Device Prohibition Amendment Act. We'll decide whether we're going to include that or not in that meeting. Okay, anything else that we need to raise? Anybody have any final comments? All right, thanks everyone for attending. We'll see you at our next meeting. Thank you. Have a good